Have you got a good idea about some of the things that you have to do to build your business, but you're still not getting the outcome that you want? Is it that you're not quite clear what being a CEO really means and how you can achieve the success that you visualise? Now, having spent 20 years in corporate working for a leading advertising agency in London, I certainly understand the power of a CEO mindset and how that can create all the difference between what you have and what you need. Now today, I'd like to share with you a live training that really dives into this area about why we don't seem to have what we want, even when we might be learning the skills. What is it that's holding us back? And what can we learn from CEOs that as solopreneurs is going to make all the difference as to how we build our businesses successfully? So welcome to Action Taker Tribe podcast. I'm your host, Jo Ingram. Let's dive in. And here's a truth, because knowing what to do is only half the picture. Knowing what to do doesn't necessarily mean that we do it. And there are so many reasons why we don't necessarily do it. And actually, being the CEO who implements is what I believe is the magic sauce. You know, if you didn't get everything done and you know what stopped you, we know that we all fall into these forms of self-sabotage and we lack prioritization or we lack organization. We don't do what we said we would do. But here's the truth. If we can implement and be the CEO to demand that of ourselves, then the success is going to come a lot faster for our businesses. Now, there's a CEO Genome Project, which I found absolutely fascinating, which was reported in Harvard Business Review. And it said this. It said that successful CEOs tend to demonstrate 4 specific behaviors that prove critical to their performance. And interestingly, when CEOs aspire to be great leaders, they can deliberately develop these behaviors. And when they do, they dramatically raise the odds that they will become high-performing chief executives. So what are those 4 behaviors that Harvard Review has reported? And the 4 successful CEO behaviors are making decisions with speed and conviction. Secondly, it's engaging for impact. When it comes to CEOs, this is talking about them engaging their boards and other stakeholders. But the same is true for us as entrepreneurs. We have plenty of stakeholders. They might be people that interact with us on Instagram. They might be people we collaborate with. But it's about relationships. We can't deny that being an entrepreneur, coaches, course creators, being in that zone where we're engaging, we're creating relationships is something that's going to level up our business. Thirdly, adapting proactively. You would have had to have adapted perhaps where you were before. You have to be proactive in taking the lead, not wait for it to happen to you. And finally, delivering reliably. Now, delivering reliably needs no explanation, but it is incredibly important. In fact, Harvard Business Review, actually says that the ability to deliver reliably is the most powerful of all of the 4 successful CEO behaviors. Now, it's defined as consistently following through on your commitments. So if you're sort of feeling like, oh, yes, that's something that definitely I need to get better at and actually follow through on what I say I'm going to do to myself. And in fact, the CEOs who scored high on reliability were 15 times more likely to succeed. So being reliable is where we're talking about being able to be consistent and following through on what you need to do for your business. Marie, thank you for saying you're a manager, you make a decision with speed and conviction, but not so great for doing it in your own business. It's an interesting thing, actually. And for all of us in the room who've been employees, and some of us still are employees, when you have a manager, it's very interesting that you behave very differently to when you are your own manager. And part of this CEO mindset stuff is starting to manage yourself. I saw a really good Mel Robbins video just yesterday, and she was saying that, given the choice, we would all just lie in bed. We would all lie in front of Netflix. We would all just not bother. And we have to be the parent to ourselves. We have to be the manager to ourselves and actually create that accountability and those thoughts that will enable us to be consistent and level up. And those are, of course, habits. The habits that we produce as a CEO is what's going to make the difference between someone that has some good ideas but doesn't quite get there and somebody that consistently moves forward no matter what pitfalls come in the way and it eventually achieves the success that's in your vision. So here's a question. Are you showing up for your business? Do you believe that you're giving it 10 out of 10? Give me a mark out of 10 in the chat for this month, how well you feel like you might have shown up for your business. I mean, the truth is that it's variable. We're never going to say every single month is 8, 9s and 10s. However, we do want to create a consistency where we're certainly leaving behind those numbers below 5, and we can sort of produce that consistency as we go forward. So how do we focus on what we need to do to be a good CEO? It's incredibly powerful, and I revisit this often, and it's the be, do, have model. So it's very, very simple, and it says the following. What do I need to be in order to do the things I need to do so I can have the things I want to have? Because too often people in general and entrepreneurs especially, we focus on what we want to have. I want a 6-figure business. I want to work 3 days a week. I want this, what I want. This is my vision. And that's good and it's valuable. We've all worked on our vision. But the problem is with a vision is that it doesn't just it doesn't just manifest on its own. Look, we all believe, or many of us believe in manifestation, and I'm certainly not going to go contrary to that because I also believe in energy. But we do have to take responsibility for how we drive towards our vision. That happens in the things that we do. But in order to do the things that you need to do, we have to be the person that does those things. It's very, very easy to know what to do and yet not do them. So the key there is to be the person who will actually affect that change. This is an amazing quote. I love this. This is Gandhi. And he said, the future depends on what you do today. And here's the truth is that we're all a sum of our habits. And it's that consistent action that's really necessary to drive us forward. And we have to create the habits that are necessary to lead us to put in the work. Because it is work and we have to do things that make us feel uncomfortable and icky, like, becoming more visible, whether or not it's something that's making an offer that makes us feel uncomfortable. As entrepreneurs, we're constantly having to push into areas that make us feel like we don't want to do it, whether it's actually coming to a decision about what our offer actually is or all of the other things. We have to make the right decisions to be strong and steady and consistent in our approach to business. And here's the thing that I love, because it's not actually that complicated. It's just simple actions that we repeat every day. And there is no such thing as an overnight success or indeed an overnight failure. We're literally the results of our habits. I am a big fan of Jeff Olson's book called The Slight Edge. And his message is really that simple actions repeated every day create a compound effect. Many of us are familiar with the term compound interest. Simply the element of time. When you do something consistently over time, we get this compound effect, which is so beneficial. And that's, for us, the result of our habits. So this Jeff Olson quote is just so fabulous. It says, the things you do every single day, the things that don't look dramatic, that don't even look like they matter, do matter. They not only make a difference, they make all the difference. And this is everything in life, from what we eat and the exercise we do. But in business, whether we spend a lot of time scrolling on Instagram before we've actually created content, before we've shown up for our business, are we falling into bad habits? And it's so easily done before you realize that actually your habits aren't serving you. And it's the idea that we're always going to fall into traps, but we have to course correct. And course correcting is just such a valuable way of making sure that we don't end up for a long period of time losing out on that fantastic compound effect. Don't know if you know that if you flew a plane from LA to New York and it was 1 degree off, you'd land in Delaware, which is, I believe, 150 miles away from New York. And that's just 1 degree. And if you use that as an analogy for your business and you're just off by that 1%, but you leave it for that entire journey, you're going to end up a long way away from the vision that you've crafted and where you want to be. So this is our opportunity to basically course correct, like the pilot in the plane, seeing that we're 1 degree off and just simply tapping back into the right course so we can continue towards our vision. And ultimately, how we show up in our business is how we show up in life. By the way, if you're wondering, well, I don't really know what my habits are like, I don't know if they're good or bad, the clue is always in your environment. If you just look around and say, what are the results I'm getting? You know, how fast am I moving in my business? How am I feeling about my progression? That will be your clue about how your habits are serving you or not serving you. And ultimately, you just need to be the person who will succeed in your goals by creating the habits in order to be that person.
So one of the best ways that I find to make sure that all of these considerations are top of mind frequently so you can keep building your business and leveling up every single month is to make sure that you do a CEO day at least every month. It's pretty simple and I go into loads of detail about it way back in episode 3. So if you haven't listened to that episode yet, please check it out in whatever player you listen to your podcasts in. Tune in to episode 3, which is called Why You Need a CEO Day. And it's all about taking strategic action for your business every month. And it comes with an accompanying workbook, which is called Run Your Own CEO Day. And it's basically a series of questions that you should ask yourself every single month. I'm going to put a link to that in the show notes, but go back to episode 3 because it's like a training session. You can grab the workbook and follow the podcast and literally learn how to conduct your own CEO day all by yourself if you need to. If you are finding that you're spinning your wheels and you're not leveling up each month and your business does not seem to be growing and you don't know how to implement this CEO day for yourself, or perhaps you haven't yet found the discipline to actually do it and you need that motivation, then spin me a DM. Let's have a chat because I'm now offering CEO Day Power Hours. Well, I say power hour, it's actually 90 minutes that we can spend together and I can go through all the CEO behaviours and questions with you and help you formulate your own CEO Day strategy so you can make sure that you're moving forward every single month and you're not feeling like this might not be for you after all. If that's for you, send me a note and let's have a chat. In the meantime, have an action-filled week. Take care. Bye now. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode today. Hit the subscribe button so you get notified when I release a new episode each week. And if you've enjoyed this, please do leave me a review.